Red Alert, regardless of how much a fan of sci-fi you are in general. We follow the missions of a spaceship named Enterprise and a fleet of ships called Starfleet, which is a space force of a bizarre life form. Most of the encounters were with aliens not too much different than humans. They often acted a little strange, wore different clothes, had different foreheads. On rare occasion, there was trouble communicating.
Darmok and Jalad.
I don't know who or what Darmok or Jalad are.
But mostly, the aliens either spoke English, or the ship's automatic translator translated their speech for benefit of the audience. In other words, the show dealt with relatable human stories, good characters and plots, and truly memorable scenes. Some episodes, though decades old at this point, are just as timeless today as they were back then.
Are you prepared to condemn him and all who come after him to servitude and slavery? Your Honor, Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
That said, the show took some time to find itself. Plenty of people tuned into the pilot, but as the episodes came out, the viewership dropped, especially after the terrible second episode and the horrendous third episode, both of which make my list today. The first season can be quite cringy. There would eventually be some pretty good episodes, but let's take a look at some of the bad ones first. Encounter at Farpoint. That's right, the pilot. We see the crew put on trial for humanity in a truly bizarre scene. Q appears, who eventually becomes one of the most interesting characters and sometimes villain of the whole series, but they have them dressed up in ridiculous costumes, and the idea of putting a few crew members of one ship on trial for all of humanity is just absurd. And that thing he does that makes people freeze is just terrible. Just look at it. Just look at it. Hyde and Q. Q comes back, but this time with Napoleonic soldiers, in an attempt to get Riker to join the race called the Continuum. John Delancey, who plays Q, acts superbly from the first episode, but acting can only go so far when you have bad writing, which was not helped by the show's creator, Gene Roddenberry, being heavily involved and demanding extensive rewrites. And putting Q in a Napoleonic uniform reminds me too much of the original series, which used to do that quite a bit. It really takes you out of the sense that you're watching something in the future. The Sherlock Holmes episodes get a pass because they were having fun in the holodeck. The only good thing we see in this episode is Wesley Crusher getting stabbed with a bayonet. Angel 1. The titular planet, Angel 1, is ruled by women and dress men up in clothes like this. We see Riker mimicking the way Captain Kirk acted in the original series. Executive producer Morris Hurley described it as terrible, just terrible, one of the ones you just as soon erase. Producer Herbert Wright felt that sexual places it was dragged to were absurd. The episode is also filled with filler.
I think I may sneeze.
A Klingon sneeze?
Only kind I know.
It's also sexist in a number of ways. One, the way it treats the men on the planet as an inferior gender in the alien society. And two, the way they vilify this female-led society as being comically tyrannical towards the men.
After 7 years, the great ship Enterprise comes to repatriate a small group of insignificant people.
By the end of the episode, you're wondering, what even was the point? Code of Honor. In a totally nonsensical move, the director chose to cast all black people for a primitive alien race and give them a clearly African-inspired wardrobe. Starfleet, including how it was represented in the 1960s, was an inclusive organization. It was set during a time actors of any heritage were represented. Men and women could be any rank based on a meritocracy. In The Next Generation, one of the best characters and most capable officers in Starfleet is a Klingon, an alien race who were previously one of Starfleet's adversaries in the original series. So it's inexcusable to make this quite primitive alien race to be cast by actors all of one skin tone. They originally were going to be lizard people, but maybe they didn't have the budget for all the masks. Still, there's no excuse for the poor choices the original director made, and it's no wonder he was fired. I also can't excuse the acting and directing, which is terrible all around, including Captain Picard and Tasha Yar.
Picard to bridge. Red alert.
The actors phoning in their performance was just one thing that contributed to making Code of Honor a terrible episode. The worst episode in Season 1 is The Naked Now. Second episode, technically the third after the pilot, which was episode 1 and 2. The Enterprise finds this ship adrift with all its crew killed and frozen. It turns out they were infected with a virus that makes them drunk and irrational. This virus spreads to the Enterprise. This was the episode, like I said, directly after the pilot, and the writers seemed to have nothing up their sleeve whatsoever, so they redid an original series episode called Naked Time, where a virus makes people feel drunk and eventually led to the loss of all hands on a previous ship and the near destruction of the Enterprise. I don't know why they picked that episode to redo when there were actually some decent episodes in the original series they could have done. The decision to base this episode on an original series rightly upset fans, who thought at the time that the next generation would turn into basically copying the original series. The following episode, Code of Honor, is largely considered one of the worst episodes of any Star Trek season or show, but at least it was new. It was crap, but it wasn't a copy. Not only was Naked Now a ripoff, but they left out the best part of the original episode. This whole episode is just absolutely cringy. I can barely watch the parts where Tasha Yar is drunk, trying to be seductive without cringing. She seduces the android character Data, and the two have sex off screen. Data acts strangely upon returning from this encounter. It's like none of the actors ever got drunk before and don't know how to act. Brent Spiner, who played Data, did he watch some Charlie Chaplin drunken clips? Data being fully functional is also something that we just didn't need to know. We just didn't. Wesley is put in charge of engineering, while there's a lot of smiling and fooling around among the crew. None of this is believable to the audience. You might say, well, it's an alien virus, they can have them do anything. But as I said before, you have mostly believable and relatable stories and character interaction, despite the show being set in outer space and with aliens. But when you have them skipping around and acting ridiculous, you can say it's alien, but what you are showing to the audience is nonsense. Remember, we don't even know these characters yet. This is only the third episode in, and yet here they are acting out of character. The actors seem to have no idea how to act, whether to act believably drunk, if they could even manage that, or to just simply act wild and crazy. I'm not sure if this is poor acting ability or poor direction. It all makes for a very confusing episode, a lack of any redeemable entertainment or message, and it's why I think it's the worst episode. But please, let me know in the comments if you disagree. Don't get me wrong as well. If you've never seen Star Trek, I still implore you to give it a chance, especially the later seasons. Some of the best episodes of Season 1 would be Skin of Evil, where an alien holds hostage the ship's counselor, a survivor of a shuttle crash. In this episode, Tasha Yar is killed off because she's a terrible character, as we've seen in previous episodes. She wasn't believable as an effective chief of security, and Worf takes her place and holds it well throughout the rest of the show. Coming of Age is good, where Wesley Crusher has to complete some very difficult Academy simulation, and we're introduced some characters who become host to an alien parasite in my favorite Season 1 episode, which is Conspiracy. It's a very suspenseful episode where we see the greatest fight scene ever.
It won't like your science, officer. It does like you. Vitamins. They do wonders for the body.
And possibly the goriest scene in Star Trek, where a head explodes. Despite these few gems, if you're just getting into Star Trek, it's best to skip the first season altogether. The show's creator, Gene Roddenberry, seemed to hold the show back from what it was eventually to become, a show of its own, a sequel, but separate, unique show, from the one it inspired and came before it. Like many shows, in the early stages, the actors took a while to learn how to be their characters and how to interact with one another. They get better as the seasons go on, especially as some better writing allows them to progress. Season 2 and 3 are probably my favorite seasons, both filled with episodes I can watch again and again. I hope you enjoyed this video and give it a thumbs up if YouTube even allows it to stay up, considering I've used the words conspiracy and lizard people in the same video. My final word is, if you do start Season 1, either skip the first few episodes altogether, or watch them on purpose if you want a challenge and try to get through each episode without cringing. I dare you to try.
But I got out of my uniform for you, Data. From you, Data, you are fully functional, aren't you?
Of course, but
How fully?
in every way, of course. I am programmed in multiple techniques.